The beginning of this tutorial starts with removing your molded mouthpiece away from your face cast. In order to make the mouthpiece, I dipped cotton in liquid latex and I formed the shape so desired for this look. I then pushed in the teeth, which were made with polymer plastic, and I gave them a coating of paint before I applied them into the latex. The nose I made using aluminum foil to a desired shape, and then I wrapped it in masking tape so that I could paint it. What you see me here is taking a small brush and some flour and going up under the latex, and this requires anything that you have on hand in order to make that tackiness go away up underneath it. You can use flour, you can use baby powder, just whatever you might have more readily available. And what this does, it releases it and makes it easier to remove, and it also stops it from being tacky and sticking back onto itself. When I have removed it, I apply another layer to the back of it to make sure that all that tackiness is gone and everything's dried up, and that is the removal. This next step is to block the eyebrows out by pushing them and brushing them down and using an Elmer's glue stick and getting a couple of coats to where all those brows lay down, that way easily able to paint over them. And to protect my natural hairline, I used Vaseline and went over all the areas that might touch latex. I was not sure exactly where the ball cap would fall, so as a rule of thumb, I go through and I protect anything on my face that might touch latex that's hair, because once latex gets into brushes, clothing, and in your hair, it does not wash out. It's just, everything is ruined. So just take precaution and protect your skin. Here I am mapping out with an eyebrow pencil where I want the eyes of coal to be and the evil eyebrows. I went through and I mapped it out using what I had on hand, and I used white for this one because I wasn't exactly sure exactly where everything was going to go in place. And I put the ball cap on and I secured the edges down with a small layer of liquid latex, and going through using a hairspray, white-based hairspray paint, I covered the ball cap. I was not too concerned about covering the ball cap all the way past the crown because I knew I would be using a hat for this look. The next step I took and I put a line of paint inside my mouthpiece, and I placed it on my mouth so I could get a good idea of a guideline to fill it in. Now I prefer to use brushes versus sponge using water-based paints, because I find that they dry pretty quickly, and if you have to go back over it with a sponge, it has a tendency to pick up paint and leave spots. So, and these products you can find around holidays. The same thing with, you know, the Halloween section of like Walmart or something like that. You have the water-based paints, the creams, the grease paints, the hairsprays. So that's where I get some of these materials. I just pick things up that I think I might use, and I figured out what works best for me. And that's what you're going to do. You're going to find what works best for you. So you don't necessarily have to use the paint that I'm using. Just whatever you might want to experiment with and have fun with it. In this next step, I'm going through and I'm painting all the areas white that will not have the black paint around the eyes and for the eyebrows. And again, I'm using water-based body paints. Soap and water gets this out, and the cleanup's pretty easy. It comes up out of hair, out of clothing, so don't be afraid if you get a little bit on some things. It's not, you know, as bad as the liquid latex. But I go through and I make sure that everything's just cohesive in a look, and everything's saturated white. This might take a couple of coats depending on what you're using. And I just carry that paint all the way down to the neckline and to the collarbone line, because I wasn't exactly sure how the sweater that I was using for this look would, how far it would go down. I couldn't remember. And also it helps when you're acting, because sometimes skin gets exposed when you're doing some video. So just in order to be sure and cover that natural skin tone up, and just carry it down to where you're comfortable for it sitting on your skin. And this is just another thing to do, to be mindful what you might do in a video, just to keep that in mind when you're doing your painting and things like that. You want to make sure that if you're going to act in your video, you turn your head up and down and things like that. So just keep that in mind when you're painting. This next portion is taking a darker eyebrow pencil and going through and putting the map out of the circles again and up through the eyebrows. So I could see what I had up underneath the white. In order to paint those darker, I put them out there just to make sure that's what I wanted, and I went back through with the black paint on a smaller brush, and I went through and filled in those eyebrows, making them thick and and thinner, just whatever you feel your look you want it to be. And the same thing, I go through and I paint the eyes, making sure that I have my eyes as black as coal. And that's the next painting portion of it. And this last process here is going through and putting a small coating of liquid latex onto the inside of the mouthpiece, putting it on the face and let it sit there for a few seconds, and taking another Q-tip, I go through and just cure those edges down around the edge, and making the transition a little bit more even by building up some more latex. And you can use a dryer if you want things to dry a little faster. I knew I had some more time to paint around the mouth, so I just took that time to let it dry naturally. And what I'm doing is I'm creating shadows and highlights, and moving on to the nose and the mouth. I made sure to go back through my white paint, make sure that I had the actual prosthetic piece that I put on covered a little bit more white, so the look was a little bit more cohesive, although the cotton and the latex dries white. So I'm just going through and making sure that I get that covered up. And to add a little bit more dimension, I went through the areas of the teeth and I just made them a little bit darker, a little smokier, and that just depends, whatever color, whatever look you want to go with. Just those areas that won't have natural lighting to it, just put a little more shadow and shedding in there, get a little grungy, just make it yours. And this is where you have fun. This is my favorite part, is the actual makeup, is the last look, what I call last looks, and this is going back through and taking care of fine details. Now, on for the nose, I used Big Poppy eyeshadow palette from ColourPop that has dark and light oranges, and for more dimension to my carrot nose, I used highlight and shadows, and the parts that are sunken in and the texture of the carrot, I put the dark. I wanted to push that back, and the areas that lift up, in order for those to pop off of that, I used a lighter bit of orange. So just have fun with it, make it your own. If you want it to be a cute nose, you'd use probably a little less shadow than I would do, and it's just make it your own. And that's the best part about it, is it's just whatever you would want to do, things that you want to see. It might not be exactly like mine, but that's great. That's your own imagination. Alright, get that nose buffed out a little bit, and on to the final look. This is it, guys. This is the final look, and if you have something that you would like to see, you're enjoying what you the information in this channel, just click that subscribe button. If you want to find me on social media and see some of the other looks I've done, it's Snowman Photo on Instagram. Now here I am removing the makeup, and I just wanted to give you a good idea about how to remove latex. You want to be very gentle, and when you start to pull, let it naturally give and do its thing. You just follow what it wants to do. Don't rip it off like a band-aid. You'll make your skin sore, and if you caught any hair, you know, it's going to really hurt. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking it off, and I'm just pulling up on that bottle cap a little bit. Again, letting it do its thing, letting it come up. It's pretty easy. And here you see me lifting it until it gives away. And when I pull this thing off, you'll see where I did not protect my hair enough in the back. And so here you see me pull it out in my own hair. But thanks guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.